The Kverneland 3400 is the first of the new generation of mounted ploughs from Kverneland. This plough is available as 5, 6 or 7 furrows. It's a fully mounted plough, and it's an on-land in-furrow plough. So the 3400S is an auto reset plough, and it comes with the trailer transport system and the new Aero Profile Leg, the central adjust skimmers and the new hydraulic depth wheel. The Kverneland 3400S comes with the patented trailer transport system, which is our new unique system of transporting the plough. This is a fully mounted plough, so when we're in work and we're in field, we've got all the benefits of a fully mounted plough, but when we then go into the transport position, it transports just the same as a semi-mounted plough. So to do this, we have our new 300 series headstock. This is rated at 350 horsepower. And also at the bottom of the headstock we have our new trailer transport system. So cross shaft assembly wise, this is a category 3 cross shaft, so it's 965 in between the ball link ends. When we're in the work position, our cross shaft is in the rear position. We then have pins which then drop in front of the cross shaft for the work position. And when we then go into transport, we simply remove the pins, which then allows the cross shaft to move forward and move at an angle as it's shown here, so we can then transport the plough. All of the turning then is done at the front of the plough rather than at the back of the plough. So as I said, we remove the pins, we then remove our top link to allow the plough to move independent to the tractor. As we draw forward, the cross shaft assembly will then slide forward on the slots, which then allows 45 degrees of turn, so we can then transport around the tightest of corners with our 45-degree turn on the cross shaft. Also in conjunction with that, our rear wheel then stays fixed. As you can see, obviously in the transport position we transport with the bodies in the butterfly position, and our rear wheel then stays fixed and doesn't move. It doesn't need to move because all of our turning is then done at the front of the headstock assembly on the cross shaft. Also with the new headstock assembly we now have a filter system, so all of the oil coming from the tractor is filtered before it goes into the actual plough at all. So if there is any debris that goes into the hydraulic hoses when you're connecting or disconnecting, all of that is captured in the hydraulic filter system that sits up on the headstock. All of the new generation ploughs come with our new leg assembly. This is what's called our Aero Profile Leg assembly, and as you can see it's got much higher underbeam clearance than our old leg. On our old leg was either 70 centimetre underbeam clearance or 75 with some spacers. Our new Aero Profile Leg is 80 centimetre, so it's much deeper in the leg assembly as well. This will then allow trash flow, much easier for trash flow throughout the plough, and also we can then also plough with our much deeper bodies, our number 38 bodies, which allows much deeper ploughing. So there again, on the leg assembly itself, it looks very similar to our old one, but it's all completely new elements. As I said, obviously it's an aero, what they call the Aero Profile Leg, and what we mean by that, it's wider at the front of the leg than it is at the back, like an aeroplane wing, so it tapers off towards the back. This allows soil and trash to flow around the leg much better than the old system. Also with the new leg assembly, it's been set into the saddle much closer, so therefore we have much more room on the other side of the leg, so therefore we won't suffer from wear on the side of the leg. This used to occur on the old leg assembly. If we didn't change the land sides regularly enough, then you could end up with wear on the side of the leg assembly itself. But say with this new Aero Profile Leg, it's been set inside slightly more so that doesn't occur. Also with the new leg assembly we have a complete new spring pack and adjustment system. Based on the old system, all of the elements are completely new, but the principle of how it works is absolutely identical on this new system than it was on the old system. So there again, leaf spring assembly. So our leaf spring pack is currently in its strongest position at the minute. We've got 70 centimetres from pin to pin. Once we're at 70 centimetres, we've then got the spring in its strongest position, and as that leg trips and moves up, the spring will then curve more, and it then becomes much easier to move the leg assembly up and out of the way. As we can see, obviously individual springs on each leg assembly, so each leg then controls itself as it works through. Because we've gone to higher underbeam clearance, 80 centimetre underbeam clearance, we need more power on the spring. So therefore our spring assembly has now gone up to 1700 kilos of pressure on the leg assembly to trip, where on our old leg assembly we were down at 1200 kilos. Also, if we do need to increase the pressure on the leg assembly, it's a simple case of additional spring will then go on the outside of the spring pack. So all we're doing is simply undoing the two nuts on the outside. We can then slip another blade onto the outside of the spring pack. We no longer have to relieve the pressure from the spring and remove the spring which you did on our old pack, because on our old pack our additional blades went on the inside. On this new spring assembly, the additional blades go on the outside. So like I said, a simple case of undoing the two nuts on the outside, another blade on, and spin those back up and tighten those back up. Each additional blade equates to another 100 kilos of pressure. With our new leg assembly, we also have our new skimmer arrangement. So our new skimmer arrangement, this is our new central adjustment skimmers. What I mean by that is when we adjust our skimmers, we are adjusting our top skimmer and our bottom skimmer at the same time. Also with this new skimmer assembly, then the bracketry is slightly more compact than it used to be on the old system. So therefore our forward and our rear position is a little bit more. So we've now got the scope to move our skimmers slightly further forward and slightly further back than we had with our old leg assembly. Also on the skimmer, we can now make a separate adjustment on the actual pitch of the skimmer by simply removing this top bolt. We reverse it and put it back in. We can then adjust the actual pitch of the skimmer, so we can then change where we are dropping our trash. So to adjust the actual depth of the skimmer assembly, we've still got a very positive fixing. So we've got a lock bolt at the top and a lock bolt at the bottom. So once that's screwed in, our skimmers are still fixed in the position, so they're not going to move and turn with the soil flowing against them. When we make an adjustment, we simply unscrew the lock nut at the top and at the bottom. So once we've got those then loosened and adjusted, the small plough spanner on the central adjustment, and then simply adjust the skimmers up and down to wherever is required. And as you can see, as I'm moving the top skimmer, the bottom skimmer is moving exactly the same position. So all we then do is determine where we need to be with our skimmer. Once we've then set that, we simply just put the lock nut back into the allocated hole. It's then locked that into position. Do exactly the same on the bottom one. Then that skimmer is then locked and fixed. Depth wheel on our 3400, we have two options with our new generation of ploughs on the depth wheel. This is what's called our swivel wheel assembly. So as opposed to our old range of ploughs where we had a pendulum wheel, where with the pendulum wheel, when we turned the plough over, the pendulum wheel had to have a dampener on it to slow it down as the plough turned over, and the wheel then dropped to the lower position. With our new swivel assembly wheels, our swivel assembly wheel stays in the lower position and the plough rotates over the plough. So we no longer have to have a dampener. It's a much simpler and easier system. Also, if the tractor won't quite lift the plough high enough and the wheel does touch the ground on turnover, it no longer matters. Because we're not relying on a pendulum system, it no longer matters. The plough will just push itself over the wheel itself. So there again, on the 3400, there are two versions of this wheel, that all the swiveling wheel type, but you can have a very simple mechanical control or a hydraulic control. The mechanical control, we would have a turnbuckle assembly that simply mounts in here, and just a very simple case of obviously adjusting our wheel up or down depending on the ploughing depth that we need to get to. But equally, we could have a hydraulic system. This is our hydraulic system, and it's what's called a memory system. So what we have with our memory system, we have our spool valves, our pipes coming from our tractor. We also have a tap assembly that then sits halfway down the plough. What the tap assembly is for is to adjust the ploughing depth. So when we adjust the ploughing depth with our hydraulic cylinder, we can then push our hydraulic wheel down to the required depth. We can then turn the taps and it will then lock it at that position, which means when we plough down the field, if we get to a wet spot and the plough itself drops in, we can then power the wheel down to lift the plough back out of the ground to maintain our correct ploughing depth. Once we get through that, when we then push the spool valve in the opposite direction, it will then go to our preset depth. So our preset depth is adjusted by our taps down the side of the plough. So once we've set that, every single time we work our hydraulic spool valve, our plough will always make sure that it always goes back down to the correct depth. Also with our swivelling wheel, once our wheel is on the ground and we're ploughing, it's locked in position. We have a Tang Adjustment system that sits at the top, and what this will do, this will make sure that our wheel is always upright and in the correct position. Even if we are ploughing across tram lines at an angle, there's no way that that wheel would then fall over, because we have a locked position for this wheel to sit into, to lock it in the correct position. Also, we have a scale which is visible from the tractor cab, so there again it's just a visual scale so that we know that we're down onto our preset depth control. Our 3400S is an on-land in-furrow plough. So this is a very simple case of extending or retracting the long cylinder to go from the on-land position to the in-furrow position. We're currently on full extension, so we're now ploughing fully on land. The plough is now pushed fully across from the headstock to allow us to plough on land. As I said, to do that, it's just a simple case of working the spool valve of the tractor on this long end of the cylinder to push the plough fully across to our on-land position. Equally, when we then come back to our in-furrow position, all we then do is retract the cylinder, and at this end we have a few collars at this end, so we can then set our front furrow adjustment. So once we've got the plough front furrow set to this tractor, we can put the collars in, so we make sure that our front furrow is always going to come back to the same place every time. Also on this cylinder, it's a double-ended cylinder, so down this end we have this section, and also our other horizontal cylinder that runs down the side of the plough. These are both our vary-width cylinders. So when we vary the width of the plough, it's a full hydraulic vary-width plough, so it will vary from 12-inch furrows all the way up to 20-inch furrows. And what we do, this cylinder and the small cylinder along the side will work in conjunction with each other to make sure that it adjusts the vary width of the plough, but also, more importantly, will automatically adjust our front furrow of our plough as well. So when we change from 12-inch furrows to 20-inch furrows, we no longer have to go around and make a separate adjustment on our front furrow adjustment, because the two cylinders work in parallel. Also, with our vary-width system on the 3400 series, this has now been changed as well, so we have additional bars that run down the side to give us a little bit more power with the vary-width system, and also a little bit more strength when we're in our transport position. On the older series of plough, we just had a single bar that ran through the middle. On this new range of ploughs, this has now been increased to a twin bar assembly that then runs along, so even in the heaviest soil at the deepest ploughing depths, we now have no issues at all with varying the width of the plough, even up to the wider 20-inch furrows. The 3400 plough, then, our standard body in the UK is our number 28 body, which we have fitted onto this plough. Our number 8 and our number 9 bodies are still available, but say the standard body now in the UK is our number 28. Now with the number 28 body, it's been designed for wider tyres, for ploughing in furrow with wider tyres. With this body, we can go all the way up to 710 tyres and plough in furrow with 710 tyres. The way we've achieved that is because the number 28 body is a much longer body, and the additional part of the body is in the middle of the body. It's not at the front, it's not at the back, it's basically in the middle of the body. So what we've done, we've stretched the body to allow the more soil movement, so we can fit a wider tyre, 650 or even 710 tyres into furrow with no problem at all. What we're doing with this, we're carrying the soil further because the body is a much longer body. What we've done, we've moved the vertical point of the board further back. So therefore, as the soil flows up the body, as it reaches the vertical point, the soil will no longer move. It will then start to rotate on itself. So therefore, the vertical point has been moved further back, so we can then end up with a bigger, wider furrow bottom. Also on this plough, it's fitted as standard with the 16-inch share. Unless you specify otherwise, all of the Kverneland ploughs will come through with a 16-inch share. A 16-inch share is for 16-inch work, but it will only cut 14 inches. We need to maintain a 2-inch hinge, so the soil will then invert over on itself. So all Kverneland ploughs are standard with our number 28 body. This plough is fitted obviously with the number 28 body. The number 28 body is designed for wider tyres. We can plough in furrow with 650 tyres or even 710 tyres. The way this has been done with this body, with the number 28 body, the body itself is much longer than our old number 8 and number 9 bodies. And the additional material is basically in the middle of the body itself, the vertical point of the body itself. So therefore, the vertical point of the body, this part of the body, has been moved much further back on a number 28 compared with a number 8 or a number 9. The reason for that, as the soil flows up the body, when it reaches this vertical point, the soil then starts to invert. As soon as it starts to invert, you can no longer move it sideways anymore. Hence the reason the vertical point has been moved much further back for the wider tyres, 650s or 710s. Also fitted to this plough, we have additional stays that sit on the back of the number 28 bodies. That's just advisable for very heavy soils, for ploughing in very heavy soils or in stony conditions, just to give the body itself a little bit more support because of the length of the body. Also, on all of our Kverneland ploughs are standard with a 16-inch share. This is our 16-inch share that sits at the front here, and a 16-inch share is for 16-inch work, but it will only cut 14 inches, meaning there will be a 2-inch hinge. So as that soil inverts, it's got a 2-inch hinge to allow it to invert and get complete inversion of the soil to bury any trash that we may be burying. Also on this plough, because it's an on-land in-furrow plough, 3400 our on-land in-furrow plough, then we have, on our land sides, we have some additional plates that then bolt into the back of the landside assembly. Now these are only needed and only required for on-land ploughing, in heavy soil for on-land ploughing. The more you offset the plough, the more rotational force you get, and so therefore the more support you need from your land side. That's what we have with these additional plates, so they bolt onto the end of the land side just for on-land ploughing only. The reason they're bolted on, not welded on, is purely so we can take them on and off. So if they're not required, we can then take them off, so we don't wear them up just for the sake of wearing them up. And as I said, when we go to the on-land position, if we're ploughing in very wet, heavy clay soils, sometimes we need additional support, and that's what you're getting from the additional plates that sit on the end of the bodies.